Yeah. Welcome to Bleach Revisited. This is Carter Gold. In this series, we read the manga for Bleach, or in my case, reread it. I then go ahead and analyze what's going on narratively and visually. And then the last part of every video is dedicated to talking about the foreshadowing in these chapters. If you're here because you're interested in this chapter of Bleach, interested in revisiting it, or even visiting it for the first time, you're in the right place. As always, chapter segments and timestamps will be in the description. These videos are completely unscripted, so hope you enjoy listening to me ramble about Bleach for nigh on an hour. This chapter introduces a new story arc from the previous one, so there will inevitably be things to say. But before I get much into that, let's go ahead and give the chapter a reading. Why don't we? So, this is episode 13 of Bleach Revisited with chapter 13 of the Bleach manga. Chapter 13, Bad Standard. Not much left. The side's weak too. Suppose it's time to go shopping. Bleach, chapter 13, Bad Standard. Rukia, I brought you some breakfast. Open up. Hey, breakfast! Where'd she go? An idiot. Hey, Ichigo, walking and eating again? Go down to the table and eat properly. Aha! The pitcher winds up. He throws. Woo! Wham! And it's a foul ball. Batting in fourth is Jinta Hanakari. Hanakari? Yeah, Hanakari. A mighty swing. Whack! Yes! A home run! Jinta, Tessai's gonna yell if we don't clean. Shut up, Ururu! I won't clean up because I'm I won't clean up because I'm scared of Tessai. No, you will clean because you're scared of him. I'm not scared of nobody. Anyway, you've got no right to boss me around. Yes, I do. I'm 3 years older than you. Owie, ow. Big deal. I'm stronger and smarter and faster. Who did that? Tessai? Rowdy as ever, eh, kid? Is the manager in? Hello. Huh? Jinta, it's not time to open yet. Don't blame me. She made me. Miss Kuchiki, one moment. I'll wake the manager. Too late. I'm up. Morning, Tessai, Jinta, Ururu. Welcome, Miss Kuchiki. I got a shipment from the other side just yesterday. How can I help you today? One Kikan Shinki Celestial Text Messenger Power Cell. What grade? The cheapest. It's your funeral. 60 Soma Fixer Internal Soul Fixing Medicine, and it's none of my business, but too much of this stuff is bad for you. If you stay in that Gigai too long, it'll be rough coming out again. I know that, but it's slowing down. Sometimes it responds sluggishly. You want a checkup? I'll give you a discount. All 255 body parts for just 4,999 con. We also offer a diet course. No thanks. Big fat money coming, yeah. On your card? No, this. Bonus money? Fishbone D. Bonus 0. Hexapodus. Bonus zilch. Acid wire. Bonus nada. Sorry, too small time for the bonus list. Nuances, really. Hey, now he was a real menace. Shrieker. Bonus 5,000. Wow, He ate 2 Soul Reapers? By the way, has my order arrived? Oh yes, it has! Ururu, go get it, please. Okay. Special order, special order. Aha! There you are. This isn't the one I ordered. Sorry, it was out of stock. That's the second most popular one, and it wasn't easy to come by. Fine, I'll take it. Keigo Asano and Ewan McGregor are twins! Like Hitoshi Matsumoto and Vincent Gallo. Okay, say it. Asano Tadanobu. Oh, so close. Anyway, keep practicing. The bird's vocabulary has crashed. What happened, Chad? Huh? Beats me. It was like that when I woke up today. Weird. The effects of... Good morning! Oh, good morning. Miss Kuchiki, radiant as always. Later than usual. Winter uniform? Yeah, family stuff. You know. Ichigo, may I have a word with you? Huh? If you got something to say, say it. Oh my, you're not well, Ichigo. I'd better take you to the nurse's office. Dude, she hit him. Dude, she clobbered him. Did she just... Here. What's this? Gikongan substitute soul pills. They'll force the soul out of the physical body. We use them to evict stubborn souls from cadavers. Keep them on you. Is this why you weren't home this morning? Yes. After the other day, I realized you needed them. Listen, when you swallow a pill, a temporary soul enters your body and pushes out your own soul. So if you encounter Hollow when I'm not around, these pills will enable you to go Soul Reaper on it. Gikongan, huh? Yes. Just push the duck head and out pops a pill. It says soul candy. I know. Gikongan sounded too clinical, so the Benevolent Society of Women Soul Reapers chose a cuter name. That was 3 years ago. Why a duck? Don't worry about it. They're in demand, so take what you can get. I tried to get that adorable rabbit, Chappie. You wanted the bunny? What? Don't look at me like that. So I like bunnies. I'm not sure I get how this is supposed to work. Take one, then you'll understand. Quack. Whoa! It worked. Surprised? Now, instead of lying around like a dead pig, your body will be animated by a proxy soul. No one will ever know you're gone. Hey! Greetings! My name is Ichigo Kurosaki. Early to bed. Early to rise, that's my motto. What? He has the ideal personality, designed by 108 of our best scientists. Impressive, no? No, he's a total dork. I'll be ruined. Years of attitude flushed. Huh? In order. Perfect timing. He'll take your place while we go fight the Hollow. Are you out of your frickin'... stop whining. Duty calls. He won't fool anybody. Listen, me. Get your butt to class. Lay low. Don't worry, master. Take your time. What? Uh-oh. I got the help. And that is it for Chapter 13 of the Bleach manga, where we get introduced to quite a few new characters. We get a little bit of a follow-up on everything that's happened so far, and a start on our next arc. We also get a nice 2-page spread. Unfortunately, I don't have the color spread here, but it is a really nice color spread. You can go ahead and look it up, the Chapter 13 color spread with all the friends on the couch. It is pretty good. But let's go ahead and let's get into the analysis for this video. As always, we'll be looking at both the art and the narrative and kind of discussing it in greater detail. So, first we open up, we've got Rukia, and she is checking a device of hers, which seems to light up to a certain degree, but it looks like a lighter, kind of, like there's the friction strip to ignite a spark that might come out like here. But it also has these kind of pins, and it looks like this is maybe lighter than the others. It's the way that I'm reading this. But she's saying that there's not very much left, so whatever is powering this, not a lot of power left in it. I wonder if that's meant to be her phone, and that it needs to be, powered up, because she does buy batteries later. But then also, she says this side's weak too, right? And she's looking at her hand. She's really thinking about how her Gigai is kind of growing less powerful, which is already, as we know, a concern from earlier chapters, where she already felt like it was pretty weak. So, really feeling the effects of being stuck in this human body for so long. I guess if you're a spirit, right? If you're a ghost and you run around ghosting all the time, and you have all these magical powers, pretty striking whenever you suddenly don't. I love that this further establishes, Ruki has been living here in this closet. We get yet again this shot of the Kurosaki clinic as a palette swap, a palette cleanser, a swap to a new page, setting a new scene, right? This is used pretty extensively early on in the manga whenever we were getting all these scenes back at the clinic with Ichigo. So we've seen this quite a few times. This, very ergonomically used, page wise, it's like a fourth page, not even that, like a fifth or a sixth. So it's a pretty long, thin panel. I wouldn't be surprised if the same one gets reused or whatnot, because it's pretty simple to do to establish a scene. But it also speaks towards Kubo yet again having this sense of setting scenes and pacing out his manga. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I love, that he's considerate enough to knock. He's bringing Rukia breakfast, but once frustrated, once not, she doesn't react. He does get frustrated enough to actually open it up and see that she is not there. Everything is folded up, so she must have already left, right? Of course, assumably, his family does not know that Rukia is living in his room, right? So I love that Ichigo just starts to eat them on his own, and she assumes that Ichigo's just taking this food up to his room and is walking around and eating it like a weirdo. But then we get this again, like, set up where, as I said before, we get some dialogue that transfers us into a scene. We even get a longer space between these panels than you usually get spacing between other panels. It's just a lot of little stuff like that. So, like, this extra thick panel space between these two, the dialogue that transfers us before we get the actual full scene, a shot of the clouds to kind of establish, like, okay, we're now panning over into something new, and then page turn, same clouds as we come down into Urahara's shop, right? And it's in this little alleyway. It is pretty dinky little sort of corner store, right? And we have Jinta Hanakari. I forgot his last name, but I do remember Jinta and Ururu. Of course, who could forget? And so I don't know, of course, either of their last names. So Hanakari, I was about to say Hanakiri or whatever, but no, it's Hanakari. But he's got this whole notion of being a batter. As you might know, baseball is quite popular in Japan. So I like that he's even kind of swinging at the ball. And this is, of course, probably a small connection to earlier, whenever Ichigo was wondering where Rukia got her pitching machine, right? And here we have someone who, as we get in this later in this chapter, this kind of connection of, sure enough, Jinta kind of batting and Rukia going to buy stuff from somebody. So we're quickly kind of learning, like, oh yeah, that's probably where she's gotten these things already. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the stuff that Rukia had access to in the human world all came from Urahara's shop. but also pretty telling that this is our introduction to these characters, and Ururu is facing away from us. She's kind of pushed off into the side, whereas Jinta is, winding up this pitch, and while he's slacking off and kind of being loud and, in a way, child obnoxious, he's still taking up like the center of the panel, and we still get a little bit more of that here. But yes, it seems like they both work here. Good old child labor. They've got shirts for the place, and yeah, Tessai's going to yell at them if they don't clean, right? And he insists that he's not scared of Tessai, but of course she comes back with like, oh, well, you will because you're scared of him, and then he's like, oh, well, you don't get to boss me around. We learn that, of course, Ururu is 3 years older than Jinta, but Jinta considers himself to be stronger, smarter, and faster. Which is curious, I guess it's like little kid standards, but maybe, knowing what we know, I wonder how much they actually are involved, right? Anyway, here we also get kind of establishment that Rukia is familiar with them. So, obviously she's got this kind of past connection that Rowdy as ever a kid, like, speaks to the fact that she's probably been familiar with these folks before even like this whole recent being kind of stuck in the ski guy having transferred her powers to Ichigo situation. Ask about the manager, which assumably is Urahara, right? Not Tessai, who they mentioned earlier. And then we get to our first bit of Tessai as he's moving quite a few things around. Kind of a interesting design for him. I really like, we have this kind of balding braids, huge kind of mustache, but also like the glasses and the apron. He strikes me almost as how like Fist of the North Star will have characters that are super ripped, but they're like, I'm a doctor, like it's absolutely it's curious, it's evocative. You think like, okay, clearly there's more going on with that character, right? And we already get a little bit of that here, where these designs and Rukia's familiarity with them already tells us that these are people that are involved in maybe more than just being regular humans, right? But here, really kind of nice moment is Tessai, even though all the kids are supposed to be scared of Tessai, right? He's very cordial with Rukia. He says, Mus Kuchiki, right? Gives her a nice little bow and says that it'll wake up the manager. And here we get Urahara with his iconic hat showing up for the first time in the manga. Bleach doesn't have a lot of like really iconic merchandise. You'll see some of the swords kind of, that's the big thing. A lot of the sword designs are pretty specific. You'll see some different like various paraphernalia, but I think the most popular one is Urahara's bucket hat with its distinctive design is one that you'll often see. If not like, the coats, which his coat is also pretty distinctive as well. In the coloration for the anime, they went with like a green for his coat, and that tends to be the case whenever it seems colored otherwise, which I think is a nice color. Same thing with the hat; it's like white with green stripes. But yes. So we get this kind of sleepy guy. We're given a big kind of introduction in front and center, him kind of walking forward, stepping even over panel. More so than all the other characters, were clued into the fact that Urahara is pretty important. And interestingly enough, we've got this kind of connection to Soul Society, right? Looking at how the Soul Reapers are all dressed in pretty traditional Japanese clothing, and then seeing the way that Urahara is dressed, it's easy to draw that connection of like, look at this guy and his clogs and his like, sure, maybe he's got closer to trousers, but wearing like the robes that he has and this Hiyori, maybe it's questionable, right? There's clearly like a visual connection already with the sort of traditional Japanese aesthetic that we're probably coming to associate with Soul Reapers. But again, he welcomes in Miss Kuchiki, and yeah, he mentions having this shipment from the other side. So clearly he deals with supernatural wares, with having shipments from Soul Society, right? From the other side. So clearly this is a van running a shop. It has to do with Soul Society, but I love also just character introduction here. We get this guy as he's woken up, and he's a little playful. He's a little shadowy, maybe a little mysterious. Got some stubble. Interesting kind of fellow, right? Um, this space up here, kind of used to fast forward the scene. I think it works well enough. Uh, you know, but like immediately clicking over to like, okay, well they've done this exchange. She's getting a power cell, which is, I assume, so the device I was talking about earlier, I imagine is for her celestial text messenger, right? And then this Soma Fixer soul fixing medicine, um, right? So Soma being like the like pertaining to the soul. Trying to think of exactly how Soma relates or how to put that for people who might not be kind of familiar with Soma as a concept, because that's not exactly entirely a Western thing as far as I know. Um, like so the idea is that like it's essentially whenever we think about like the soma, it's like the physical body, right? I think it's like very specifically like it's typically used as like a distinction between um like the spirit and the body, right? uh I think traditionally the idea is that like your mind or your soul are separate from your body itself. So like soma is I think Greek, maybe Latin. You'll have to look it up, but regardless, it's specifically talking about the body, right? Um, so this idea of like soma fixer, eternal internal soul fixing medicine, right? So I think the idea is that like it helps adhere her soul to this body is what we can kind of infer from the way that that's structured. Uh, because clearly she's feeling like that she's more sluggish, that it's responding sluggishly, right? So he's saying like, look, this is bad for you. You stay in that Gigai too long. It's going to be rough. So we get the sense that yeah, these soul reapers, these spirits, are not meant to stay in physical bodies. Which leads us to question, are Kisuke and his crew all of them in Gigai? Are all of them actual living humans? Like, what's the deal with them, right? Obviously, we don't know, um, but it raises that question for these other characters that Rukia knows. And I think that what we're meant to assume is that they're all people that work out of this store, but have this connection with Soul Society, and maybe there is like this bigger kind of world beyond what we understand. As there's all these businesses that maybe help facilitate Soul Reapers or not. But I think already this chapter is kind of doing a lot in the way of world building, kind of building this really evocative, store that handles merchandise from Soul Society and even has like defective merchandise and things like that. So there's certainly a lot going on there. We'll talk about a little bit of that world building too. I absolutely love this panel. I probably need to isolate this just for my own purposes of Eurohara with the given a little like piece whatever, not necessarily the okay sign, but with the line big fat money coming, yeah, over his head, right? Um, but he offers like a checkup on her Gigai, and like even like a diet course. I assume that's like a cheaper course, not like a actual like I'll offer you a diet or whatever. But her immediate like no thanks is great. And then she's going to charge it straight to her Soul Reaper account, right? Because technically Ichigo is fulfilling her contracts that she has coming in through her phone, right? So here we get the idea that Soul Reapers kind of make a bonus for their work, that they get paid for taking on more dangerous hollows. And here we get the actual names for the hollows that we've seen so far. So, as I've been referring to them by these names as we've been going on, but, Fishbone D, and we get some really great, I think these are just reused panels of each of these, but really good images for all of them. So Fishbone D, Hexapodus, Acid Wire, and of course Shrieker, which Shrieker, all the other ones didn't have a bonus, but Shrieker, because he ate 2 Soul Reapers, assumably is worth 5,000 of, whatever this currency happens to be. And it's interesting that Urahara, obviously he knows about Soul Reapers, but, he has this moment of kind of considering Shrieker and thinking about it and having a whole it gives him pause. But quickly, as Rukia establishes, she's made this order in the past, so clearly she's still got ongoing business with them if that wasn't made clear enough. And Aruru is asked to go pick up the order that she had, and so the idea, I assume, is to get this soul candy, right? But she ends up opening up the wrong ones, right? Now, she says it's not the one she ordered, but it was out of stock, and they got the most popular one. As we kind of find out, she wanted the Chappie Bunny dispenser because it's very cute, and she likes rabbits. But they only had the Yuki. And I don't blame her, because if you play Bleach Brave Souls, Yuki and Pupples are garbage. They're trash. And if I ordered a Chappie and I were to get a Yuki, I would be pretty frustrated too. So, that's a little bit for us BBS players. But yeah, back to the school again, using a quick framing here, quick turn of the page as well to get us there. As always, pretty effective. I think the dark kind of backgrounds here, as well as the real focus in on this device, are meant to kind of, I think the device stuff ends up getting played as a gag, right? Where we're supposed to be like, oh, what is this mysterious thing? And then it's like just a cute Pez dispenser for souls. But the darkness here is really meant to kind of show and establish that this is going to be a problem. The idea that she didn't get what she ordered, that maybe there's an issue with this merchandise. We get more of Kago trying to talk about looking like Ewan McGregor, which is captivating. I guess Kubo liked Ewan McGregor for whatever reason. I wonder if I wonder if that's the actual Japanese or how accurate a translation. But obviously, the group's all hanging out. Like Chad's over here doing crossword puzzles. Clearly they've had their memories erased, right? So they don't remember any of that, or at the very least Chad doesn't. Effects of the explosive device for her to remove their memories, and we get Rukia acting very sweet rather than her usual severe self, putting on a real face for these others, which we got to see a little bit of that in a way of whenever, in the previous chapter she was talking to Yuichi Shibata and kind of reassuring the parakeet soul, or the boy in the parakeet, that Soul Society would be a nice place to go to, and that it'd be all fine and he'd be happy, and helping him move on. I think to a degree this kind of shows a lot of how Rukia interacts with people, right? That it's not necessarily two-faced, but that she affects a sweeter personality or a more approachable personality whenever the situation calls for her to be that way, right? But she tends to be a little bit more self-serious. But yeah, she's acting all cutesy, and of course, I love that she basically knocks out Ichigo to pull him away. Again, more early kind of great comedic bits. Here we get Ichigo getting that Yuki, the soul dispenser, soul candy, the Gikongan substitute soul pills. I think that ends up getting translated, at least in the anime or whatever. Usually gets shortened down to mod souls, but I might be thinking of something else in general. Interesting also that, again, some world building. They use them to evict stubborn souls from cadavers. So I guess there's a lot of times, like what we got earlier, where Yuichi's soul kind of attached to the parakeet. Maybe we get spirits that are still attached to their body and refuse to leave the body. And so they use that to forcibly kind of kick them out. It's curious, right? Um, I mean, assumably they would use them also to exit their own Gigai and let their Gigai continue to walk around. But, yeah, because that's certainly how they're using them here. But the idea is that a temporary soul enters your body. And so we start to get kind of into, like, okay, so they have these temporary souls that they pop into themselves. What's the deal with that? Because the ethics of what a temporary soul is massive, and it kind of doesn't. It gets totally glossed over here. Um, I like how he's thinking about, of course, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. But yeah, I love that he's really critical of like the cute branding. He's like, it's soul candy, and we get, the Benevolent Society of Women Soul Reapers chose a cuter name. Also, something that happened 3 years ago, which notably, Ururu is 3 years older than Jinta. So that's another time within the same chapter that 3 year date was brought up. And then the 3 year date was also brought up earlier with regards to Orihime's brother, right? He died 3 years ago, correct? If I'm remembering that correctly. So there's this 3 year date is already seems kind of significant. So something to kind of tuck away, keep in mind that this has come up a couple of times, especially in this chapter. Has already come up twice. Is that a couple things have happened 3 years ago? But yeah, clearly 3 years ago they chose a cuter name and probably even cuter branding for these, right? So soul candy. Um, but yeah, Rukia gets all flustered about him asking why it's a duck, and it's because she was trying to get the cute rabbit Chappie. She likes rabbits. If you notice, a lot of her artwork featured little rabbits too. So, of course, she wanted the bunny. She likes bunnies. It's a little cute thing to kind of maybe humanize Rukia a little bit more, because she has been such a severe character, and pretty serious. So we get more of her kind of girlish side, more of her interests, but she's pretty defensive of that. And I like that she just tells him to take one and he'll understand. I also love that you poke its head down and it makes like the relevant noise. It quacks and spits out this soul into you. Love this drawing of Ichigo. This is some real Kid Cosmic looking. Like, I love this panel. I'm going to take a screenshot of that later and keep it for myself. But this visual of Ichigo's soul being ejected from his body is fantastic. I think the juxtaposition between like this kind of really goofy, very minimalized, cartoonish shot of Ichigo into this big, action shot of his soul being kind of forcibly ejected is very cool. And yeah, his body just whumps over, and he's like, "Whoa, it worked!" And Rukia very proud of her idea, because this was her idea, right? To go and order this and get it all working. I mean, she put in order for it already earlier, so clearly she had this idea for a while now. Maybe even since Ichigo started his career as a Soul Reaper, that she put in this order. Clearly, she would have gone back if we were to assume that she got the pitching machine from Urahara to help train Ichigo. That's probably builds a timeline for whenever they put in the order as well. So already the universe kind of has these connections built into it. But yes, we get this flowery kind of individual that Ichigo is disgusted by because he's so attitude and punk, whereas this guy is all upright, right? He has the ideal personality designed by 108 scientists. And I think that this really again gets to what I was talking about with like this kind of bizarre morality, that we're starting to get these glimpses and this fuller image of Soul Society. So clearly, Soul Society is maybe a pretty gender forward place. I mean, they have a Shinigami, like the Soul Reaper Women's Association, right? So very clearly, and someone like Rukia could be a Soul Reaper, and everybody's pretty pretty so far in this chapter, like constantly referring to her as Miss Kuchiki. So we get the sense that at the very least, women are given a bit of deference in Soul Society, that they're treated well to an extent, and maybe that aligns with her saying that it's like this nice place, right? That like it maybe doesn't have the same sort of gender issues that we tend to see here in our world, which is kind of interesting. But by the same right, they also have temporary souls that were designed by committee. Um, and that's really bizarre, right? The idea that, you know, they themselves are spirits, right? They don't have a physical body. They don't have the soma, right? Um, so the fact that they are making essentially people that only exist on a temporary basis for something as banal as kicking corpses out of bodies, right? Because that's what she said the intended purpose of this was. So the idea of like, and they sit in candy the whole time. Like, can you imagine your existence? You're brought into the world. Your soul exists only to be a temporary thing as you exist in candy until you've been kicked into a cadaver. Like, and then what? Then your soul is destroyed later? Like, what's, I assume as the candy's digested, so is your soul? Like, what's to happen there? So like, very, very morally dubious. And I think the idea is that like the way that she presents this is like, oh yeah, we got in this cute candy wrapper and all this stuff. Like it's something that they don't even seem to bat an eye at. That like they're their technology revolves around the soul because they are spirits, they're soul beings themselves. That their technology itself is so intrinsically deals with the soul, and kind of steps beyond these sort of ethical barriers that we might consider whenever dealing with such a thing. And so we already get this kind of we're getting this glimpse of Soul Society as like, yeah, maybe there are some nice things about it. Maybe you don't go hungry. Maybe women are treated more equally. But at the same right, they have scientists that are real creeps that make pervy bodies for you to temporarily inhabit. And because right, they're upset. The as she said before, those research and development people, they're all creeps, right? They care more about legs and tits than they do uh, like a functional strong body, muscles, as she said. Correct. So that's curious, and it also makes us think, because we've, I would say, uh, it's an interesting thing where Rukia is really giving them a hard time because I don't think her Gigai looks that different from her as a Soul Reaper outside of like artistic interpretation, right? Um, so I think the idea of like the fact that maybe she's criticizing that they would maybe more faithfully create a Gigai that best represents her physical assets more than her muscle strength is maybe her criticism, but already we get, yeah, like they're making artificial bodies. That's a whole can of worms. Especially sexy artificial bodies. I don't want to even start to talk about the implications of that, but also temporary souls that they can stick in cadavers. Also pretty troubling. But all of this is presented as is, so it's maybe one easy for us to overlook or not consider the ramifications of, or like the kind of the darker aspects of. But two is clearly from a character point of view and a world building point of view, the way that Rukia presents it is like, yeah, it's just how it is, and it's all dressed up in these kind of cute ways. That Soul Society doesn't see this societally as being problematic. So that's a lot there. It's kind of interesting that like it's clearly a very different, um, I say clearly very different society, but very different culture than the one that we have here, just anywhere on Earth, really. I imagine. So yeah, neat stuff. And I love, yeah, this kind of frenetic pace where Ichigo is really upset with this kind of sparkling faffer, this weird temp soul that's in his body, and he's going to ruin his reputation. But he doesn't have any time to stop that because Rukia is like, "Yep, we got to go fight a hollow." And yet again, I love that she drags him off once is out of his class, and here she's dragging him off again. And this is such a great beat, where we've seen this character. He's all goofy. He gets reduced to just this smiling emoticon of a face. Says, "Don't worry, master." And we turn the page into, again, we get that darkness, and his expression fades, and his text even changes normally, and he just says, "Take your time." And that's pretty ominous, right? That immediately lets us know, okay, we already know. Like, if we weren't aware before, we know now. The arc is definitely about this other soul that's inside of Ichigo's body, right? That the setup is, hey, we need a spirit to kind of a temp spirit to take care of Ichigo's body to make it passable, so he's not just passing out for several times a day. Anytime that I had to get him out of his body, what happens if one of those souls, takes over, right? And that gets established for us, like, really within a matter of a few pages. So pacing wise, I think it sells itself really well. That problem got introduced to us in a previous chapter. Whenever, like, as a gag at the end of the chapter, someone came across Ichigo's unconscious body. So we already have it in the back of our head that, like, okay, well, there needs to be a solution for this. Rukia establishes, hey, here's the solution for this, and then we get this complication, right? This moment of conflict, and we can already imagine. Again, I say all great stories, they live in conflict, right? Obviously Ichigo wants to be, we get a little bit of Ichigo saying, he'll ruin my reputation, because he's really worried about, like, this temporary designed by committee perfect idealized soul to ruin his reputation. But here we get that, perhaps the ruining of his reputation might be a little bit deeper, and maybe even this other soul won't want Ichigo to come back and take his body, because now, instead of being a piece of candy, he gets to inhabit a body, right? So we get that's this real evocative kind of moment, of, like, danger that we understand, and because we're shown this moment, we're also given, like, a real ironic sense of, like, we know that this is happening even though Ichigo and the others don't. So whenever I say ironic, this dramatic irony, right? We know something that the characters don't, and that fuels kind of our interest in the story as it moves forward. Like, how will they find out? When will they? How long will it be between whatever this character intends to do with Ichigo's body, and as Ichigo, more or less, while Ichigo's gone, and whenever they discover what's going on, and how will that play out? So that I think that's a fantastic place to kind of bring the chapter to and end the chapter on, and to really, of course, like, we could have just ended here. Like, I think that would have been fine enough, but I think to a higher degree, Kubo really wants to kind of really establish, like, this is bad news by hopping back here. We get the small pan. Your heart is designed so strong that it immediately brings us back to the other scene, right? Um, and yeah, we see, it's defective soul, and just that, like, that's all we need to know, that this is not only is it this other soul in Ichigo's body that might ruin his reputation, but we know that it's defective, and it's curious what defective might mean, right? Also curious why Urahara has a box of defective souls. Also kind of wild to think, oh yeah, I've got a box of defective souls in my shop. Want to buy a few? Like, there's a lot going on here, that kind of builds the world and does some interesting things. And of course, I love the little cute punctuation of your Ururu being happy that she got the help, whenever obviously, her maybe being a little, scatterbrained or a little less perceptive or aware is what's driving some of this conflict, right? That she accidentally picked up the defective souls for this order to fill. So it's curious indeed. But yeah, that's this chapter. I think artistically, obviously has some. We get to see some new designs. I think really all of them pretty much work to kind of really sell us on the characters. Um, you know, these kid characters as well as Tessai and Urahara, Kisuke, and yeah, we get the hint that there will be a hollow encounter maybe next chapter, as well as things going on with this temporary soul in Ichigo's body. But that's it for this chapter. That's it for chapter 13. Now we're going to go on to spoilers. So if you're not interested in having anything spoiled for the manga, this is your chance to get out of here. My chance to get some water. Ew. Are they gone? All right, let's talk about spoilers. Let's talk about how this connects to Bleach and what foreshadowing might even be here, right? So already whenever we open up, we get Rukia's Gigai weakening, right? And if I hope I'm not talking out my ass here. I hope that I'm remembering this correctly. I thought that the whole point was that she was given a Gigai that was essentially going to. I don't remember if the point was to give her a Gigai that would keep her human forever, because the idea would be that, yeah, like I'm not sure how this was meant to play out, because I thought that Urahara produced a special Gigai for her, similar to the one that he had produced for Ishin, or yeah, I don't know. Maybe I imagined all that. Maybe that's something that I read and I just internalized it. But I'm pretty sure that that's the point, right? That like her Gigai weakening is in fact something that was planned, that she would essentially more or less start to live as a normal human does. But it is curious. But yes, we start to get a little bit of that from Ruki, and clearly she doesn't feel comfortable not having that power. I assume that this is supposed to be Tatsuki back here, right? Anyway, just thinking. I of course quite curious, right? Ichigo trying to find Rukia, her being beyond some sort of threshold that he has to open and move past, and like trying to find her, right? That and of course he finds her amongst this institution. Um, I don't know, Soul Society, whatever. Maybe that's reading a little bit into it. Anyway, we get Jinta and Ururu. Obviously, Jinta's whole deal here, he's up to bat. We know that later on he ends up getting a mace, so that kind of connects. But also we get like Ururu being really kind of passive, kind of soft-spoken. I love that Tessai's going to yell at them if they don't clean the place up. I don't know if we ever get confirmation about Jinta, but obviously Ururu is as we come to learn, she's a like homunculus, right? She's not a real person. She's a created spirit. I don't know what the deal with Jinta is. I don't know if there's something there. If there's something more about Jinta, let me know. But Ururu is very much like Nemo, right? And it's no surprise that, as we'll come to realize about almost every powerful character in Bleach, they create a little girl at some point. That is an ongoing motif. I'm surprised that Ichigo didn't have a daughter, because then he would fulfill that as well. But we get that here. Urahara has made this little girl, right? And then, of course, Mayuri creates a spirit. And then, of course, Stark creates a little girl. And, of course, Yuichiro is a little girl created by, um, you know, what's his face? Um, ugh, Zaraki. And it seems like it's a consistent, like, once you get powerful enough, you need to make a little girl. I don't know why. I don't know why Kubo continues to run with that thematically, why that's such a parallel thing. But here it is. Here we get a Ruru. But here we don't get very much of that. Obviously, that connection to Urahara. We get more of a kind of clear connection of Tessai, and that Tessai can be this scary guy, even if he doesn't appear that way as we see him. And of course, we're introduced to Tessai. I like that both Tessai and Urahara refer to Rukia as Miss Kuchiki. I gotta assume it's less them being. I mean, obviously they're being like kind shopkeeper, service kind of people. But I think another part of it is that she is from this royal, like the royal family of the Kuchiki. She's from the Kuchiki family, and so maybe we're meant to maybe interpret this on a first read as them just being very polite or very service polite. But it was hard not to read it on a return as them kind of deferring to her proper kind of heritage, right? Even though it's not by birth, but her noble house, and that giving her them wanting to show respect to her because of that. Yeah, we get excuse me, Urahara awakening from slumber, kind of coming from this other threshold. Obviously, we know that he's from Soul Society, so him arriving from sleep, the world of the sleeping, even, and from this other, door, the Japanese slit open door, that very clearly, I think, visually connects him to Soul Society in a lot of ways, but also he's firmly rooted in the mortal world because this is his shop, right? This is where he's at. Also, design-wise, we get a lot to kind of, like I said before, to connect him to the Shinigami, but also to very clearly indicate that he is a powerful character once we start to understand the visual language of what denotes a powerful Shinigami. And so with the whiter undergarments instead of the so he's already got the inverted colors, right? If we're reading it just on black and white, obviously this is all interpreted as like shades of green and the colored, but if we're interpreting this, instead through whites and blacks, he's got the inverted sort of captain colors, right? Where instead of a Captain Sayuri that's white, he has the black robe with this unique design around the trim. But then also he's got the kind of white undergarments, like a white Shihakusho, which we did see earlier in Rukia whenever she was stripped of her powers. So it could be evocative maybe of being stripped of their powers, but as we come to find, he still very much has his. He's really just been sort of exiled. What is it? Exiled? That's the word I'm looking for. From Soul Society, right? So maybe that denotes his exile status a little bit. But I think the inversion of colors is very significant as far as kind of establishing that he's like a Soul Reaper, but maybe different for different reasons, right? And as we come to find out, he's got all those connections to the Hollows. He doesn't have the exact inversion of colors like the Espada do, which is meant to clearly show them as, basically coming from the other opposite side of things. But yeah, kind of interesting stuff. A lot visually there that ties him to the Shinigami, but marks him as different. I like that we get a little bit more about the power cell and her ordering the cheapest one and him saying it's at your funeral. I love, knowing that he's XR&D, like obviously these are things that he cares about. I know that early on it's like kind of established that Urahara has this kind of cheapskate shop where he sells kind of bunk, bogus goods. But I think, if you would sell high quality stuff, you would. But it's more like a smuggling operation than anything else. I wonder, who his connections are on the inside that's running in this stuff. It's just Yurichi, because as we know, she can move back and forth through the whatchamacallit. Oof. Is it the Senkaimon? Anyway, I don't remember what the name is for the actual proper gate between the two realms. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So we get a little bit of that, and then I like that. He insists that he talks about like staying in that Gigai too long, and not taking too much of this medicine. So clearly, like we're given these hints that clearly Urahara, more than just a merchandise thing, is very aware and conscious of Gigai, which of course he would be. He probably helped develop them. He probably prepared the Gigai that Rukia has, right? I think that's the whole point. If I remember correctly, if I'm not just talking to my ass, I thought the whole idea was that he prepared this special Gigai for Rukia because specifically he wanted to have the Hogekyo inside of it to bind with her soul and be hidden within her. And I would go on to maybe even speculate, because he knew that she would be around Ichigo, that Ichigo would resonate with it and it would help develop his powers. But, that's more on another time, maybe, whenever we actually get moments in the plot that talk towards that. Anyway, we're established again, kind of that hierarchy of what's important to these sorts of bonuses. And I know that seated officers all get like different salaries and stuff. It's kind of interesting because, what's money useful for in Soul Society, right? But clearly there's things that you can buy. So kind of interesting. Also, this establishment of like these being kind of nuanced here hollows that really taking care of them for your job just makes sense, that you're not going to get a bonus, right? Beyond your normal pay unless you take care of one that's actually a threat. I think here Urahara thinking about Shrieker and having this kind of moments of like, is really speaking towards like, I think he's evaluating Ichigo's growth here, right? Because he's having a real moment where he's considering, the importance of Shrieker and having eaten 2 Soul Reapers and having been defeated by Rukia, which he obviously knows that Rukia is stuck in this Gigai. He's definitely aware of Ichigo's situation. So I think Urahara is, having this kind of moment because he's maybe surprised, or he's kind of meditating on how much Ichigo is kind of growing, right? And the sort of enemies that Ichigo is taking on. So it's an interesting moment. That's at least how I interpret that. If you have another thought on it, feel free to let me know. Again, with any spoilers in the comments, make sure that you tag them that way before you write them. I don't want other people to get spoiled by just going into the comment section. But here we have her getting the, fated kind of mod soul deal. Yeah. I love how much early on Rukia is just dragging Ichigo around. Which, I mean, to be fair, he picks her up and carries her around all the time, too. So it's a kind of a lot of manhandling back and forth, which I can see why people might ship the characters because of how physical they can be with each other. But, I read it more a comedic moment rather than like anything in as far as physical intimacy. I wonder, because, they evict stubborn souls from cadavers. Obviously, we come to learn with Khan that, he was developed as a part of an idea of, like, creating, like, a temporary soul, like, army, right? Like, using these mod souls to create, like, actual combat spirits. But, I wonder if the other substitute soul pills, right, the Gikongon, I wonder if those are really Like, if Ruki is being entirely forthwith about this idea of, like, using them to evict stubborn souls from cadavers, like, how often that comes up, right? And if so, it's an interesting solution on her part to, use that for Ichigo, to pop out of his gi guy and still continue to kind of live a normal, natural life. Um, the interesting thing is, I don't think the soul cadaver thing makes a lot of sense, because she quickly follows up with, like, oh yeah, they have, like, these personalities that are designed by committee, 108 people designed to be the ideal personality. Why would he need an ideal personality for something that's just hanging out in a cadaver, right? So I mean, other than, like, I guess it, like, does it become a zombie and run around? I don't think so. It's dead. The soul's just clinging to it. So I've got to imagine that, at the very least, they use it for other applications too. It's just that the most common application might be this cadaver one. Needless to say, we never see that application again in the manga, as far as I'm aware, as far as I remember. So, kind of interesting stuff, regardless. Um, yeah. I said that we established this timeline, but, she's saying after the other day I realized you needed them. I assume that she's referring to, again, whenever she knocked his soul out of his body at school, and his body was just left limp there. Which would have mean that she put in the order, I think, after the first arc, right? So, eh. Right? Because clearly, obviously, it's before the second arc that she has the pitching machine. So maybe I'm just full of it whenever I'm saying maybe when she went in the pitching machine, she made the order for this. Who knows? Trying to create a timeline here, trying to think about how it connects. But she also establishes this idea of him encountering hollows while she's not around, which is kind of interesting. I think maybe that hints to the fact that she knows, to an extent, that she's going to be captured at some point and brought back to Soul Society, maybe even. But I think she's at the very least hopeful, that Ichigo will continue to get to be a substitute Soul Reaper. And so maybe this is, speaking towards that. It could also be speaking towards the fact that, like, Rukia might not be around for whatever other reason. But I think, like, especially with filling in, like, the back, that kind of ominous back light, right, that we were getting in other situations, I think is made to make us think that, like, her not being around is maybe something that she has a little bit more insight into. You can't help but think that maybe she expects that she'll be, at the very least, punished for having given him powers, and that she'll have some time whenever they're not together, but he might need to fight hollows to protect people. So it's an interesting consideration. Yeah, we get the mention of the Women's Soul Reapers Association, uh, which is pretty great, or the Benevolent Society of Women Soul Reapers. We get a little bit on Chappie, Yuki, and all of that. Wish we got more cute Rukia going, later on in the manga, but it's all good. Regardless, we get this bit here where, we get introduced to Khan. Obviously, not fully, but we get him, my name's Ichigo Kurosaki. So at the very least, to a degree, these modded souls, like, pick up a little bit of the imprint of what the other soul left, right? Because there's no other way that he would know that he's Ichigo Kurosaki. Anyway, yeah, I mean, as we'll come to find out, Khan does take his body for a joyride, and also, speaking towards that kind of weird, dubious ethicality, I mean, he doesn't want to give up his soul, right? Or his body. And yeah, the whole idea of defective souls being this is another point of connection that I think is pretty hilarious. Like, this 3-panel spread isn't this just all of Bleach? Like, this is the plot of Bleach in 3 panels. Like, I almost feel I dare you to find any other 3 panels in sequence. I dare you to find any that better represent the entire plot of Bleach. Right? Urahara rolls up, sees defective souls, is like, wait, what? He's clearly peddling in souls. He's clearly peddling in defective souls. He's clearly dealing with soul engineering. He's invested in like the mechanics of the soul. There's some sort of defect going on, some sort of issue with the souls. It's going to be a problem, and Urahara is aware of it, and he goes, "Uh-oh." Like, this is so pure to what would be like just kind of the entire character of Urahara, the entire conflict of Bleach. Like, telescoping this out, right? We have, so turn back the pendulum, right? They're investigating in the ways to kind of push the boundaries of the soul, whatever. He discovers the Higekyo through soul kind of like soul studies. The Higekyo breaks down, it's the breakdown sphere, right? It breaks down the barriers between the soul or whatever. At least that's the way that they normally interpret it, right? They interpret that the Higekyo is what allows souls to holofy without undergoing what is it? Soul suicide, right? So it allows like that sort of breakdown between the soul without it completely destroying itself. So, but then of course we come to discover that the Higekyo actually is a device that's able to fulfill the desires of its user. And so the only reason why it was breaking down souls that way is that these people wanted to push the limits of the soul and push them towards being able to acquire these new powers. Now, of course, the dramatic thing is that that does mean holification, because within universe, it's the only way that they can kind of push towards those new limits. But and there's this idea of like not necessarily defective souls, but certainly from the point of Soul Society, with the initial cast of the Visored, this entire situation and Urahara stumbling into it and being like, right? So there's that already. Going even further, like to just like the entire thing with Misaki and saving Masaki's soul, right? And the entire situation that birthed Ichigo, and Urahara realizing the potential that was Ichigo, and maybe even having a huge hand in making sure that Ichigo came into being, even by meddling the ways that he did. And I think a lot of that grows from Urahara being aware of the status of the Soul King, who may also be, to a degree, a defective soul, right? That the Soul King is this entity that has been kind of whittled and chopped and is going to maybe eventually need to be replaced. And if the Soul King needs to be replaced, certainly there needs to be a Soul King replacement to keep things the way they are. And why not nurture a soul that can probably replace him, i.e. Ichigo, and therefore Urahara's entire involvement in the plot is making sure to facilitate Ichigo's growth so that Ichigo can be the soul to replace this defective one. There's a lot there. But the idea of Urahara being involved with souls that aren't the way that they normally would be, and that being cause for concern, the souls not being the way they normally be, and Urahara being involved in this sort of like way that he's this outsider looking in, that he's got this bigger hand in everything. That is so much of what's driving the larger beats of Bleach, right? As much as the conflict with Aizen is between all these other characters and Ichigo and all of that, it's very much a battle between Urahara and his ideology and what he's cultivated, and Aizen, right? Because both of them want to go about very different things that are in conflict, right? So, yeah, very, very telling into this chapter. Very whenever I talk about introducing a character and using the same structures, I think that's where Kubo really effectively, he's like, we understand Urahara and the way that he will be involved in the entirety of Bleach based off of just this one chapter, because these structures that get shown to us just get iterated on in different ways. And so, we're able to take an initial understanding or initial depiction and then see it iterated in all these different ways that make us come to understand, the further depth of it. But we're still, there's this familiarity, it feels consistent. It's narratively consistent. So, great stuff. Man, Bleach is good. Great place to end the chapter. Cute Ururu sketch at the end. I'll let you end on that, right? Yet again, a lot to talk about in this video. Over an hour video again. Is what it is. What it is. I'll ramble. Well, I expected these to be shorter, but we end up where we are. As always, thank you for joining me on this adventure, on this Bleach Revisited Chapter 13, Episode 13. This has been Karakura Gold. If you want to support the channel, if you like what I'm doing here, feel free to go ahead, leave a comment. I've got the Twitter, I've got the Patreon. You can support there as you do like. My Patreon tiers are literally pay what you want. There's one tier, and the whole point is that you just get to help support me, basically buy me lunch, that sort of thing. But, I don't see ever doing this as a living, but if there's enough interest, for sure, I am just kind of approaching this as this being a fan project and a thing to really drive my interest and engage with the community and maybe help build interest in Bleach even as it kind of has its resurgence here in the year of our Lord 2021 into 2022. So, without further ado, this episode's long enough as it is. Again, this has been Karakura Gold. This has been Bleach Revisited. As always, spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.